The morning mist still clung to the river, willows along the bank trailing dew from their branches. Snow-steed onyx ambled forward, hooves crunching softly on the path. Cui Yana nestled in Kaelan's arms, her beautiful eyes fixed on the distant sails, barely visible through the haze above the water. A cool breeze teased the loose strands of hair at her temples. Her voice came feather-light, her cheeks already burning crimson. "Eldest brother Jiang, your leavings, could you kiss me?" Kaelan dipped his head, his lips brushing her heated cheek, and then withdrawing. "Figured I should stamp my seal first," he murmured. "Wait for me." Cui Yana closed her eyes, lashes trembling. 3 days slipped by in a blink. The clear and bright festival dawned, a light rain just ending. Before the sky had truly lightened, a sliver of morning moon still hung faint and elusive on the horizon. Before the bronze mirror in the guest lodge, Kaelan stood bare-chested, methodically fastening the collar of his martial tunic. Coarse gray-brown cloth wrapped his towering frame of over 8 feet, a battered wine gourd slung at his hip. The mirror reflected a face full of stubble, but his eyes burned fierce and sharp. Great Zia dragon's barrow lay quietly on the table. Its blade deliberately smeared to mimic ancient rust and patina. Kaelan reached out and gripped the hilt. The blade thrummed, a low, guttural vibration like a predator's throaty growl before awakening. An invisible ripple spread through the air, a thin layer of frost crystallized across the bronze mirror's surface. "What's the rush?" Kaelan grinned, slowly hoisting the 4-foot-wide blade onto his back. Its long haft jutted diagonally from his shoulder, the tsuba bearing a dark crimson, archaic seal that flashed and vanished in the dawn light. He turned and pushed open the door. From the distant hills came the tolling of a bell, the signal calling the Cui family to the ancestral rites. Mist lay heavy, the mountain hues indecipherable. Only faintly visible on the trail was a small figure, glancing back with every step she took. Kaelan swung on to Snow-steed Onyx. The stallion let out a long neigh, 4 hooves shattering the pools of standing water. As the spray erupted, it caught the last icy gleam of the waning moon hanging on the horizon. Hoofbeats rang out, cleaving through the silence of Chink Commandery's long street, riding straight for the county border. Atop the hill, Cui Yana had just reached the summit when some instinct made her turn. The thinning mist gave way to the first blush of morning light. She could no longer see the departing figure, only the willow-lined riverbank, where the crescent moon was sinking into the seam between water and sky, leaving behind a vast, hazy expanse of river sheen. She caught the corner of Ailian's robe ahead of her. "Father." Ailian glanced back. After the ancestral rites, Yong will request confinement voluntarily. The girl's eyes were slightly reddened, but her voice held steady. "Please, father, teach me the Qing purple kai." Ailian regarded her for a long moment, then stroked his beard and nodded. "Very well." Cui Yana looked once more beyond the county toward Kaelan. "You must wait for me," she whispered to herself. 3 years, don't forget, Yang. 1,000 lie to the southeast, lay ancient Sword Lake. Deep bamboo forests encircled the shore, their morning mists yet undispersed. Beside a thatched hut stood a solitary grave. On the bluestone marker before it, a name was carved in crisscrossing sword marks. Frost sat cross-legged before the tomb, his longsword laid across the pedestal. He raised a wine flagon, tilting its spout so warm liquor streamed in a thin line onto the blade's spine, trickling down the edge and dripping onto the soil before the steel. Then he tilted his head back and drank, throat working as he swallowed, veins of bloodshot crimson threading his eyes. Within the bamboo mist, the wind stirred, the gourd ran dry. Frost placed the empty vessel with solemn precision before the headstone, then closed his fingers around the wine-soaked hilt. From the mist, a voice spoke. "Frost, I knew you would come." Figures flickered all around. Sword glints shimmering in and out of the fog. Their footfalls were hushed, as if stepping on rotting leaves. They had the hut entirely encircled. Frost did not turn, his gaze still fixed on the grave. "I knew you would come too. Then you came here to die. Because the offerings here are incomplete." Frost rose slowly. "Wine is not enough. What?" He drew his sword. A dragon's keen split the morning mist, not a metaphor. It truly split it open. From the grave marker as the epicenter, a visible ring of sword kai exploded outward, blasting the dense bamboo fog into oblivion. Leaves rained down like a storm, and before they even touched the earth, the residual sword intent shredded them to dust. Those figures instinctively retreated half a step. He turned around, his eyes scarlet, yet a smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Wine without blood means I'm missing some heads. You've arrived at the perfect time." Sword light flared 30, 2 streaks of it. Frost's form vanished from where he had stood, leaving only sword light splashing through the bamboo grove like cold stars, like scattering snow. The first head spiraled into the air, blood fountaining 3 feet high, slashing in glaring crimson across the face of the bluestone steel and trailing down the sword. Scarred names. The second blade had already pierced the second man's throat, its tip punching out the back of his neck in a mist of gore. Third sword, fourth sword, fifth sword, Frost. Silhouette pulled a streak of after-images through the now clear grove. Wherever his edge passed, severed limbs and broken weapons flew together, blood-splattering bamboo stalks, the soil before the grave, and his own ghastly pale cheek. Some tried to flee, they could not. The sword light pursued them, driving through their backs and bursting from their chests. One man stared down at the blade tip, protruding from his body, bloody froth bubbling from his mouth. As he collapsed to his knees, he faced the tomb. Before a single stick of incense had fully burned, the last man fell. Frost stood before the grave, his long sword angled toward the ground, blood still dripping methodically from its fuller. He raised his head. Overhead, washed clean of mist, the sky stretched limpid as polished silk. A beam of golden light descended from the firmament, pouring into his skull through the Beihui acupoint at its crown. Midway on his journey, Kaelan reined in sharply, snow-steed onyx reared, mane whipping in the wind. He gazed skyward. In the vault of heaven, golden characters were slowly coalescing, each stroke steeped in killing intent. Fourth month, clear and bright. Frost comprehended the sword before a grave, penetrating to the fifth tier of the profound pass. In the time it takes an incense stick to burn, he slew all 32 enemies of the sword hut, offering blood to his sworn friend. Among them, one rival of his own rank, the rest fell before him where none could withstand a single exchange. His murderous aura pierced the 9 heavens. The hidden dragon list shifts. The golden light gradually dissipated. Kaelan withdrew his gaze and spurred his horse onward. Before long, dusk settled, and a spring drizzle began to fall, draping a small town in the clarity of rain. The slick bluestone long street mirrored the dim lantern light from the eaves, rain slanting in woven threads that struck the moss on the stone steps and burst into tiny water blotches. The damp air, mingled with the scent of liquor drifting from afar. Clung stickily to the skin, Kaelan dismounted, his boots pressing onto the steps slick with moss, the treacherous footing drawing a frown. He wiped the rain from his face and tossed the reins to the boy who came out to meet him. Innkeeper, the finest feed you have. I may starve, but not my horse. The boy's eyes lit up as he circled Snowsteed Onyx twice, clicking his tongue in amazement. This horse incredible. Kaelan said nothing. His gaze sweeping from the corner of the street. On the road, the golden light of the Chronicle of Chaos had streaked across the sky again. The name Frost carved into his heart like a cold blade. He touched the hilt of the dragon's barrow blade on his back, his fingertips brushing the icy metal grain. With his own rank of 60, 6th on the hidden dragon ranking, would it be enough against that madman who had slaughtered his way through his own sect? Right this way, sir. The wooden door of the tavern was pushed open, and a wave of heat, laden with the sharpness of spirits, the rich scent of braised meat, and the sweat of does, a nest of men rushed out, shutting the cool, misty rain outside. Kaelan chose a corner seat and leaned the dragons, barrow blade casually against the table. The sheath met the wood with a muffled thud, a few men at the next table who had been braying with laughter. Instinctively glanced over, their eyes swept over the mottled dark patterns on the blade's hilt, their throats bobbing involuntarily before they awkwardly turned back. One of them spoke, voice loud and jeering. I tell you, Kaelan got the worst bargain. The Cui family girl was practically handed to him, and he still got booted out. Wasted his time as her bodyguard. Ha ha, another chimed in, slurring slightly. Don't you think he... all show and no blade, all those days alone with the girl, and he didn't even take a bite. A third man sneered, TCH, that's called noble integrity. What would you filthy curs know? The first one retorted, can you eat integrity? In the end, he still slinked off with nothing. Kaelan lifted his noodle bowl, the hot soup scalding his throat enough to make him squint. Fine, let them slander me to my face. In a corner, an old wanderer in a bamboo hat sipped his wine, voice slow and measured. The Cui family left some leeway after all. A 3-year pact if he makes the mortal chart, the marriage is set. For a clan like the Cui family, going that far is like holding a blade to their own throats. Another voice chimed, true enough, they left him a way out. A third, rougher one, we got a good feeling about that kid. He trains like he's popped an immortal pill, shot up the hidden dragon ranking in half a year. Never heard of such a thing. 3 years from now, who's to say? Someone slapped the table. If that day comes, I'm buying everyone at this table drinks. Kaelan twirled a mouthful of noodles, the corner of his mouth twitching. You lot have more faith in me than I do. The clamor surged through the tavern, candle flames trembling under the noise. Rain dripped from the eaves, a steady rhythm against the window lattices. Then the air froze, not a drop in temperature, but a suffocation of breath under an invisible field. The candle flames stood still. The liquor haze stopped churning. The rain outside muffled to a distant, blurred drone. A figure had, at some unnoticed moment, seated himself opposite Kaelan. Clad in black inked dark hair, features sharp as carved steel. No trace of magical power, yet every martial wanderer in the hall fell silent in unison, lightening even their breathing. Demon Suppression Bureau, Weiyang. Young Master Zhao, Weiyang's tone was casual, as if remarking on the weather. The Demon Suppression Bureau has need of talent like yours. The terms are open to negotiation. Kaelan didn't move, but his finger beneath the table pressed silently against the mortise, antenna on joint, knuckles exerting faint strength, the wood grain sinking into shallow dents. T.S., I've heard that when the Demon Suppression Bureau recruits, they always pave the way with an invitation from the King of Hell. He raised his head and smiled. Lord Wu's personal visit is quite the show of respect. Special talent, special treatment. My terms are simple. Let Duskbloom come talk to me herself. Weiyang's brow moved, but he said nothing. Duskbloom owes me an explanation. Kaelan raised the bowl, drained the last of the soup, and set it down with a crisp clink against the table. If she comes, we'll talk. If not, Lord Wu's trip has been for nothing. The silence lasted only 3 breaths. Interesting. Weiyang smiled, drawing a thin roll of silk from his sleeve and placing it on the table, pushing it over. Information on Frost. A gift. Why? Because when you refused me, your hand was pressed under the table. Weiyang rose, his black form merging into the rain curtain outside. He tossed back one final remark. Not everyone, when facing a recruitment from the Demon Suppression Bureau, is still thinking about which window to use after a falling out. Kaelan watched him disappear, then lowered his gaze to the silk scroll, slowly releasing his finger from the table corner. His knuckles, from the excessive force, had paled. Silently, he tucked the scroll into his robes and rose to leave the tavern. The rain still fell. Snowsteed Onyx, tethered under the eaves, was cloaked in fine droplets over its jet black mane, glittering like scattered crystals under the lantern light. Kaelan walked up to his horse, but did not mount. He bent down and ran his hands inch by inch along the grain of the saddle's leather, fingertips gliding from the front swell to the rear, sensing the evenness of every stitch beneath. The hide, he traced along the copper buckles of the girth, confirming that each rivet was firmly embedded in its hole. Rain slipped through his fingers, soaking his cuffs. Without lifting his head, he continued to inspect the leather joints of the stirrups. The texture of this leather, if tampered with, even an inconspicuous scratch could mean a tracking talisman. He felt slowly, meticulously. Eaves dripped steadily onto the bluestone, the splashes dampening his boot tops. Beads of water on the horse's mane, stirred by the wind, rolled down the glossy black strands, tracing brief, sharp arcs of light in the lantern glow. The rain stopped at some unnoticed moment. A rift split the clouds, and daylight cleaved through the leaden sky, setting the puddled official road ablaze like shattered mirrors. Kaelan swung back onto the horse, flicking a piece of silver to the waiter. The intelligence Weiyang had left still rested between his fingers, but the man himself was already gone. He had no idle mind to chew on the veiled barbs in those parting words. A gentle pressure of his thighs against the horse's flanks, and Snowsteed Onyx moved forward at a slow walk, his gaze dropping to the paper. The sheet was coarse, the ink not yet fully dried as sharp pine, the scent mingled with the post-rain muck and clawed at his nostrils. As Kaelan's fingertips scraped over the characters, the laziness in his brow gradually faded. Frost, a silent disciple of the Bashan Sword Hut. 3 years ago, he sought a sword at Ancient Sword Lake, journeying alone and finding a friend. By chance, they received an elder's legacy. The friend took the sword, and Frost took the sword manual. Soon after, fellow disciples from the Sword Hut came, flaunting their power and backing. They killed the friend and seized the treasure. That very night, Frost tore the secret manual apart in fury, blood splashing his blue robes, and renounced his sect. Barely 100 words, yet they scraped across Kaelan's bones like a dull blade in the latter half of the report. The pen's edge turned abruptly sharp. 3 years of sword trials, 5 gates of the profound barrier opened, sweeping Kingaming graves, all enemies butchered. A searing energy exploded in Kaelan's chest. He seized his wine gourd and poured a huge gulp down his throat, the fierce liquor cutting a cold path through his windpipe. Satisfying, the low cry startled the birds roosting in the roadside woods, bursting them into panicked, chaotic flight. His eyes turned abruptly cold, wrong. The birds startled too fast, too chaotically. Something moved through the woods, crushing dry branches beneath its weight. Kaelan's wrist flipped, and a copper coin tore through the air. The shriek was a ghost's wail, splitting the damp air. A muffled thud metal driven into human bone. A spray of blood fell from the treetops, and Shade grunted, plummeting to thrash in the mud below. No time to look closely. Sword light attacked from the front. 3 figures burst from the thickets, long swords thrusting. points cleaving the wind and locking onto his face and throat. The sword Kai had not yet reached him, but its chill already whipped Kaelan's sideburns flying. He grinned fiercely, clamping his legs hard against the horse's flanks. Snowsteed Onyx screamed and reared, hooves the size of bowls crashing onto the earth. Mud water exploded, dust rolling out in waves. The massive horse body transformed into a black bolt, charging straight at the net of swords. During the rush, Kaelan's right hand reached back over his shoulder, 5 fingers closing around the hilt. The moment his palm touched the wrapping cord, great Zia dragons, Barrow let out a deafening hum, like a ravenous beast catching a scent of blood. The blade trembled with eagerness inside its sheath. The swords arrived, the horse arrived, clang, the blade left the sheath. Cold brilliance erupted, an arc of light splitting the mist and tearing a jagged sonic boom through the air. The 3 assassins' pupils shrank. They wanted to shift their forms, but it was too late. Suspended in midair. How could they evade this sweeping force? Gritting their teeth. They could only block with horizontal swords. The instant the blade edge collided with the 3 long swords, a piercing metallic wail exploded. The fine steel long swords, brittle as dead twigs, shattered with a bang, fragments shot outward. The saber's momentum did not cease, slicing through the 3 bodies in a hair's breadth instant. Time seemed to freeze for a beat, then hot crimson gushed forth, splashing Kaelan's entire lapel. His tattered cloth soaked through in an instant, the spreading warmth carrying a sweet, metallic tang of rust. Broken swords clattered to the ground. The 3 corpses, carried by the horse's charge, flew backward, crashing into puddles and sending up a vast spray of bloody water. Blood rained down in a flurry, mixing with the lingering raindrops, drenching the roadside green grass and the still, humming tip of dragons, Barrow. Kaelan sat upright on horseback, broken strands of hair clinging to his forehead. His eyes were cold, as if tempered by a blade's edge. He raised his left hand, slowly wiping the blood spatter from his eyelid. Dragons. Barrow lay horizontal before him, traces of red still lingering in its fuller groove, dripping one by one into the mud. Snowsteed Onyx screamed. Iron hooves trampled through the broken limbs. The sky-charging mist of blood was left behind in its wake. Great Zia dragons. Barrow hummed and vibrated in its sheath, as if driven mad by the very act of drinking blood. The weapons in the hands of the remaining assassins ahead froze in midair, their pupils reflecting that black horse barreling straight for them. The cracking of bone under hooves snapped audibly, their Adam's apples rolled, their calves shivered. How could they possibly move a single step? In the roadside bushes, 2 hemp ropes, thick as a child's arm, snapped taut tripwires. A cold glint flickered at the edge of Kaelan's vision. He hauled the reins back. Snowsteed Onyx's hooves gouged deep furrows into the mud. The horse wrenched around, charging straight for the rope's end. The man hauling the rope saw it coming. That black horse was on him, 3 zhang away and closing like a storm cloud. The saber was even faster. A dark crimson arc slashed down from horseback. The air shrieked. The coarse fibers snapped with dull thuds. Then the blade bit into flesh, a crack, heavy and blunt. Half a torso, still gripping the rope, stood frozen. Blood mist sprayed from the severed waist. Snowsteed Onyx had already thundered past the corpse. A foul wind kicked up dead leaves as they surged 10 zhang beyond. Kaelan slid the blade back into its sheath, his laughter ringing across the official road. Blood God cult, Snowhawk Pavilion, or just some cheap thieves after my horse and sword. I'm not hiding my tracks. Come, if you've got the guts. The hoofbeats faded, dust swirling. On a high slope, Weiyang clasped her hands behind her back, the afterimage of that dark crimson blade, the ramrod. Straight spine on horseback, all vanished into the dust. She clicked her tongue, so fierce, and the seat leader actually worried he'd run into trouble. This man says he doesn't want help, but he's thrilled, probably hoping his enemies aren't strong enough. An attendant started to speak, then just sighed. Weiyang didn't press. She remembered how the man had crouched before mounting, checking the horse's iron shoes, inspecting the saddlery like a meticulous groom. A reckless fool, a hero. Men like that usually have wild grass 3 feet high on their graves. She murmured, go back, tell the seat leader this level of concern. It's beyond the norm. The blade had tasted blood, no more obstacles on the road. Kaelan urged his horse on, the wild grin slowly fading from his lips. A chill settled in his eyes. When he swore that covenant with Frost, everyone in that crumbling temple was dead. Only Cui Yana knew. Outsiders shouldn't have known when he left the Cui family, let alone his destination. Yet the moment he departed, assassinations came one after another. Even the Demon Suppression Bureau was waiting. Thoughtfully providing Frost's dossier, only one explanation. Cui Yana mentioned it to someone, and the news leaked. Dinarb Cui was dead, but the shadowy forces behind him remained. They couldn't strike at the Cui family, so they'd strike at an outcast. These tripwires, they're not typical Weiyang, who, Kaelan's thoughts snapped into place. Since his enemies knew, and the Demon Suppression Bureau knew, could the seat leader of Duskbloom fail to recognize the great Zia Dragon's barrow on his back? She'd already run a dozen scenarios in her head. From her view, as long as he didn't go to Ancient Sword Lake, he'd be safe. Why force his way in? He clamped his legs and drove the horse forward. A man's promise stands even if knives rain from the sky.
What do women understand about that?
Saying you'd attract powerful enemies by not hiding tracks. Those words were for others to hear. Snowsteed Onyx pounded down the road. After half a day, he'd left the pursuers so far back, not even a shadow remained. Then, abruptly, he yanked the reins. The black horse reared, a defiant neigh splitting the air, then wheeled and plunged into the wilderness. The setting sun slanted low, stretching man and horse into impossibly long silhouettes across the withered grass, gliding like phantoms through the weeds. By moonrise, the hoofbeats echoed on a mountain trail dozens of li away. Of that man, the official road held no further trace. At the same hour, in a dense forest beside that very road, Alaric of the blood god cult stood with hands clasped behind his back. His blood, seethed, visible like heat haze. Any falling leaf within 3 feet of him turned silently to dust. His face was a thundercloud. You told me he made no effort to hide his tracks. Riding straight down the official road, the henchman stammered why. Yes, he announced it in front of everyone. I have waited here for 3 hours. It is already dark. Alaric's voice dropped to a whisper that sent night birds bursting from the trees. Where is he? Perhaps he took a midday nap in a grove, Alaric's back, and spun the man like a top 3 or 4 full rotations. The man knelt in the dirt, spitting blood, not daring to make a sound. Worthless, made a fool, and you didn't even see it, wasting my time. The transmission elder leaned toward the tree trunk, lowering his voice. Old son. Given what you know of this brat, where would he be now? Son Hengchuan leaned against the trunk, arms folded, gazing up at the birds. A faint smirk tugged at his mouth. He dropped his arms, stood straight, and gave a gruff laugh. How the hell should I know? The little bastard started out a polite young lad. I gave him that bandit swagger, always telling him to raise his voice, who knew what sort of devious soul was hiding in his bones. The transmission elder sucked in a breath, as if nursing a toothache. Quite a few in the cult are pinning this on you. Son Hengchuan's voice erupted. Pin it on my damn prick. I taught him broad and fair, no favoritism. I turned a bandit into a blade that's sharp. That's my skill, deserving praise. Spreading the faith and guiding him was their job. They failed to keep a good seedling I raised, and now they blame me. Alaric shot him a sidelong look. The logic wasn't baseless. But who'd dare praise him openly? Son Hengchuan was on a roll now. Bannon, that dumb fuck, didn't I file complaints? Didn't I say he was narrow-minded, selfish, and stunting the seedling? Didn't I recommend Kaelan for the main hall? If you'd all just listened, we wouldn't be in this miserable mess. Now blame me. To hell with every last one of you. The transmission elder, seeing Alaric's face darken like a pot bottom, cut in hastily. Enough, enough. In the end. Your apprentice turned traitor. If you personally haul him back, it's merit, not fault. Son Hengchuan grunted and fell silent, but his mind was clear. He wanted no part of this. He'd taught that kid hand to hand, calibrating every ounce of force. The more that name rang through the martial world, the greater his own glory. Beneath the surface blame, he could hear the envy. A man lives once. Was he supposed to covet their paltry mission, pay? Alaric's tone went flat. Son Hengchuan bears no fault. The cult will not reproach him, but in hunting the traitor, Hengchuan should shoulder more. Now this man has played us false and vanished. Your assessment. Son Hengchuan felt certain Kaelan would head for Ancient Sword Lake. But he said otherwise. We're not the only ones hunting him on this road. He knows that. If it were me, I wouldn't. Go, risking my head for a duel, but that's me. I won't stake my name on his thoughts. Don't start pinning the blame on me again. Alaric swept his sleeves and left. The gathered men exchanged glances, the tension draining. Protector Ding saluted to take orders. Son Hengchuan clasped his fists in wordless salute. The blood god cult disciples scattered to their posts, guarding key routes, hunting Kaelan. A half-moon hung overhead. Snowsteed Onyx's hooves crushed dry grass, crossing prefecture after county. Kaelan stayed out of the cities, stuck to the wilds. Enemies met. He killed them, no lingering in a fight. 2,000 lie of brutal riding. His robes were rags soaked in blood. Only the great Zia Dragon's barrow on his back grew more ancient, its essence purer. One night he stopped at a nameless creek. He knelt, scooped water to his mouth, gulping it down. He splashed his face with handfuls. The water was ice cold. It reflected a ragged face, bristled with stubble. He grinned, a flash of teeth. Wolfish, and unstrapped the great Zia Dragon's barrow from his back. He rested the blade across his knees, picked up a rough stone from the bank, and started honing. The grit rasped against the steel, a whisper, soft, dense sound, like silkworms chewing mulberry leaves. Moonlight spilled over him. Those dark red veins on the blade bloodstains, dried hard from countless kills, slowly stirred. Like a sleeping vermilion bird spreading its wings in the moonlight, sinews bleeding, blazing, about to catch fire. The rasping stopped. Kaelan lifted the broad blade with one arm, a weapon any normal man would need both hands to hold, and pressed the edge to his own throat. Right against the Adam's apple, Snowsteed Onyx, drinking from the creek, suddenly jerked its head up. Its horse eye caught the cold blade kissing flesh, and stared, horrified and wide. The blade was ice, cold, scraping slow across his skin, close enough to feel the chill. Stubble hissed down, a soft cascade. Goosebumps prickled his throat, but not a single layer of skin was cut. Once, twice. The dark red veins along the blade's spine swirled with each pass, like living blood. He flicked his wrist. The great Zia Dragon's barrow slid into its sheath. His whole aura sank, solidifying in that instant. The edge is ready. He patted Snowsteed Onyx's head. Sword Lake lies ahead, ride. He swung into the saddle. Hoofbeats shattered the moon's reflection on the creek. By the shore of ancient Sword Lake, Frost leaned on his broken sword, its point braced in the dirt. A wound on his shoulder gaped to the bone. Blood crawled down the sword's spine, soaking a dark patch at his feet. A dozen blades, glinting cold moonlight, ringed him tight. Someone sneered, "Frost, that man you're waiting for. Has he already bolted back north of the river?" Frost lifted his gaze. The wilds around him were silent. Wind threaded through bamboo, hissing like whispered blades. His voice came calm. "I will wait for him. Even if it means dying here." The broken sword tilted forward. A bead of blood slid off the tip. Drip, then I die here. The faces in the crowd shifted, but no one spoke. Their blades rose as one, murderous intent solidifying into something thick. 10 lie away, bamboo shadows rustled in a mournful wind. Sun Hengchuan stood in the narrow path with 4 or 5 blood god cult members. The instant he heard hoofbeats, his hand went to his blade hilt, unease plain in his eyes. Snowsteed Onyx burst through the mist. Kaelan hauled the reins. On the horse's back, he was a picture of rigid exhaustion, bloodstains half, dried on his clothes. He dismounted, not explosive, but his armor plates clicked together in a low, shifting whisper, like a sigh. As he landed, the hilt behind his shoulder slid into his palm. His 5 fingers closed around it. The air itself thickened. Sun Hengchuan stared at him, the rims of his eyes reddening. "Are you a goddamn idiot? For this pissant nonsense, how many life and death fights have you clawed through on the road? Look at the blood all over you. You can barely catch your breath." Kaelan was silent a beat, then said, "You ought to know me. Know my ass. I took you for a man with brains, just don't show up. Problem solved. You can't even grasp that." Kaelan raised his eyes to meet his gaze. Sun Hengchuan's cursing was vicious, but he couldn't mask the urgency and fury burning in his eyes. Kaelan smiled. Hierarch Zhu, a man of his standing, would never be stupid enough to personally ambush every road for half a month. The ones who do that have no status to speak of. "I can handle them," Sun Hengchuan's mouth twitched, swearing again. Kaelan sighed. "It's just. I truly didn't want to meet you under these circumstances. Oh, now you're using honorifics. I don't want to fight you, God admit. Can't you just hide away and retire already?" A vein throbbed at Sun Hengchuan's temple. The cultists flanking him wore stiff, frigid expressions. Kaelan swept his eyes over the cultists and asked, curious, "How is it you're the one leading?" Sun Hengchuan's voice came heavy. "Protector Ding was in charge, but Saintess Zia commandeered him the moment we arrived. That left me leading here." "Then you truly can't beat me." Kaelan's tone was matter of fact. "With you leading, I want to fight even less. How about a deal? Let me pass." Sun Hengchuan gave a furious laugh. "Don't I know exactly what weight you hold? You dare say you can beat?" The words caught in his throat. His eyes bulged. Kaelan gripped the 4-foot broad blade in one hand and swept his arm out. The blade was like a black door panel, sealing the road without a hair's gap. Half-dried blood from his clothes crawled down the blade's spine, congealing into dark crimson frost on the cold steel. Fatigue still clung to his frame, yet his aura pressed down, a lone tiger crouching on a desolate plain, rattling bamboo leaves off the roadside. The air turned leaden. Breathing became a struggle against unseen pressure. Sun Hengchuan was dumbstruck. This was a saber. "A saber you could swing one-handed. I've reached the 4th realm. Not the 3rd realm the Chronicle of Chaos reported a while ago." Kaelan's voice stayed unhurried. "The saber is different too. Its form has changed, and my blade path is nothing like before. Instructor Sun Hengchuan, you're also at the 4th realm." I'll offer a boast against any opponent of the same realm.
Not one has ever lasted 3 exchanges beneath my blade. My advice, don't test it. Sun Hengchuan's throat worked, but no words came.
Beside him, a cultist snapped, impatience gnawing at him. You can barely steady your breath. You're utterly spent and still putting on a front. Take him down. A blade glare slanted, chopping at Kaelan's left shoulder. Kaelan watched that arc of steel with a cold stare, not moving until the edge. Wind scraped his face. In a breath's space, the cultist's wrist landed in his palm, as if it had surrendered to a trap. Fine, crisp grinding of bone sounded. Iron, strong fingers locked the wrist, a numbing ache shooting through acupoints to the shoulder. Then the great Zia dragon's barrow tore through the air. Its wailing shriek still hung on the wind as the icy marrow, freezing edge kissed the man's neck, raising every hair rigid. The blood god cult members froze silent. That force, that speed, that control down to a single hair's breadth. The framework still faintly carried the bones of the blood god blade technique, but its spirit had transformed unrecognizable. Sun Hengchuan's gaze held staggering complexity, whatever the Chronicle of Chaos reported. However wild the Jiang, who rumors ran in his heart, this was still the kid he'd taught from nothing, step by step, hand on hand. Deep down, a thought had been turning. He'd capture the boy himself, bring him back to the cult to beg for leniency, persuade the hierarch to spare his life. Only now did he abruptly realize the boy no longer matched the shape in his heart. Kaelan pulled back the blade, released his grip, and shoved the cultist back into the group. The blood god cult gave me shelter and kindness. Kaelan is no ingrate who forgets his roots. My grievance is tied to Bannon alone. Even if instructor Sun Hengchuan weren't here, I still wouldn't wish to spill the blood of blood god cult members. These words, I hope you'll relay them to Hierarch Zhu. Farewell. Before his voice fully faded, he launched into the air, passing over the heads of the crowd. From the bamboo grove, Snowsteed Onyx burst out at an angle. Kaelan flipped midair, landing perfectly in the saddle. Hoofbeats exploded. Man and horse vanished into the distance, leaving a bloom of dust drifting slow in the air. By Sword Lake shore, the encirclement was gasping its last. Frost gripped nothing but a dagger, length stub of broken blade. A heavy sword hacked down, he was spent. He forced the stub up to block, and the blade sheared again. The swordsman's grin twisted. Frost, I'll give you this. You're damn strong, but it ends here. You can wait for the one you arranged to meet in the 9 springs of the underworld. The edge lifted again. Hoofbeats tore from far to near. A warhorse screamed. A dragon's cry. The swordsman whipped his head around. A big man, broad blade in hand, vaulted from his horse and smashed straight through the battle lines. Were the great Zia dragons. Barrow swept. Limbs and armor flew apart, blood geysering. Those in the way never saw the blade's path, only their swords snapped and heads tumbled. Screams caught the night wind and scattered into nothing. The besiegers' formation dissolved into chaos. Who the hell are you? Why are you butting in? I fought wind, frost, rain, and snow. Rode 1,000 lie just to keep one damn appointment. You cut him down. And my whole month of hell turns into a bad joke. Get out of my sight. Frost, broken blade across his knees, soaked in blood head to toe, looked up. There was that man, just as drenched atop his horse, killing intent thundering against the sky. Frost's rigid face cracked open. And smiled. Kaelan wheeled his horse around, and his first words hammered down. Who the hell told you 2,000 lie counts as 1,000 lie? Frost pointed at his shattered blade, the smile a painful effort. You just said the exact same thing. Damn it. Far off, in a treetop, Zalia stood silent, robes fluttering. A night breeze swept past, the corner of her mouth curved. Softly, she murmured, 2 fools. Sword Lake City had no walls, no guards, no taxes, so people flooded in like a tide. Gold and silver, blades and swords, rouge and blood, they all fermented together here. Kaelan rode through the teeming long street. Before his gaze could drift across more than a few shop fronts, a thick gust of perfumed wind slammed into his face. The scent was cloying with cheap rouge, cut with street dust and the rankness of sweat. Forcing its way into the nostrils, a painted madame, rouge smeared thick on her cheeks, flicked a kerchief and pressed close, her voice pitched high and thin. Ayo, young master, won't you rest at our 10,000 flowers pavilion? Our girls are the prettiest in the whole city. Zither, chess, calligraphy, painting. They excel at all of it. Kaelan reined in his horse. He looked down at her from on high and asked, do they excel more than the head of Duskbloom? The madame's smile froze. Her cheeks twitched. No, not at all. Kaelan nodded and flicked the reins. Forget it, then. Go practice some more. Hooves struck the green flagstones, kicking up a splash of filthy water tinged with rouge. Behind him, Frost's laughter rang out sharp and short before the street noise swallowed it whole. Ahead, another building draped in red and green rose up,
The commotion at its gate was fiercer than at the pavilion, two men locked in a death struggle.
No curses, no shouts to break it up. The dull thud of a fist smashing cheekbone, the brittle snap of ribs cracking, each sound so vivid it made the teeth ache.
By the time Kaelan urged his horse closer, one man had crumpled twitching in a pool of blood, his fingers still scraping at the flagstone gaps. A few brothel hands jogged out. They bent, lifted, turned their movements practiced and smooth, like hauling a sack of rice. The corpse's fingers dragged across the ground, smearing a wet, dark red trail over the stone. The scent of rouge and powder still hung thick before the doors. The stench of blood floated just beneath that fragrance, churning into a throat-constricting mix. From inside, the pipa began to play again. Kaelan clenched the reins, his voice hardening. What the hell is the local yeoman doing?
Frost drawled, by regulation, this place is still just a town. Who knows what His Majesty is thinking? Then how do they collect taxes? What a goddamn waste. Frost stared, no answer coming. Kaelan pulled his gaze away, a headache pulsing behind his eyes.
Is there a Demon Suppression Bureau office? On paper, no official station is established here. Frost looked toward the depths of the streets and alleys, at the dense clusters of homes and lamplight. But in practice, there ought to be some unassuming house, some brothel or gambling den. Any one of them could be it. Kaelan asked no more. His gaze swept to the street's end, where a large inn stood. The raised plaque bore golden characters blazing bright, a home away from home. At a side door, someone was leading a horse to the rear courtyard, and the outline of a stable was just visible. This one, he swung down from the saddle and strode into the inn. The waiter darted forward at breakneck speed, his face piled high with eager smiles. Honored guest, you've got an eye for quality. Finest stables here, finest hay, and I ain't just talking horses. The mounts we offer in bed get the finest hay too. Kaelan stopped mid-step. He turned his head to look at him.
The waiter's eyes darted between Kaelan and Frost. He lowered his voice and squeezed out a suggestive grin.
Honored guest seeking a mount but no mare. Can't be done. Everyone's got their mare. How else you gonna attract business? Tusk, you. Far from home, and now that you're here. Frost's expression turned to ice, a sheet plastered over his face. Kaelan cut the waiter's torrent short.
You have a private courtyard, yes. We do, right this way. The waiter guided them through the covered corridors. Rest up first. I'll have the girls come over so you can inspect the horses. No need, we want peace and quiet. Don't let pointless people disturb us. The waiter's steps paused for just an instant. His gaze flicked between them once more. A meaningful curl tugged at the corner of his mouth. I understand. He retreated swiftly, his laughter still echoing through the portico. Kaelan's face went wooden. He turned to Frost.
What did he mean by that? Frost's face was blank. Nothing at all. Damn. Kaelan jabbed a finger at the room next to the courtyard's edge. Every word seemed to grind out from between clenched teeth. Get lost. My reputation's been ruined by you.
What a blight. Frost straightened his face, pushed open the door, and entered. When he shut the door, his scabbard knocked against the frame with a dull thud.
The extinguished candle was relit. Frost peeled off his blood-stained clothes and applied salve to the wound on his shoulder.
The sting of ointment meeting raw flesh had barely begun to spread when his ear twitched. His 5 fingers closed soundlessly around the broken sword resting on his knees.
Footsteps outside the courtyard, extremely light, like a cat padding across roof tiles. The wind carried in a thread of faint, subtle fragrance.
Cool and crisp, nothing like the cloying sweetness of brothel rouge and powder. Frost angled his body to the window crack, his gaze piercing through the thin paper. He saw an exceedingly graceful silhouette from behind.
The woman's figure was wrapped in ill-fitting men's clothing. The fabric rustled faintly with her movements, but the curve cinched at the waist by her belt couldn't stay hidden.
She stood poised before the door of Kaelan's room across the way. She raised a hand and knocked softly. From inside came Kaelan's irritable roar. Damn it, I said no disturbances. Now get lost. The woman pinched her throat, deliberately roughening her voice, yet unable to suppress the clear, bright quality beneath. This one knows you have no taste for women, honored guest, so this brother's put on women's clothes to give you a good time. Every hair on Frost's body stood on end. The next moment, chaos erupted across the way. Something was knocked over. It sounded like a table. Porcelain hit wood, and a wooden leg scraped across the floor with an ear-piercing shriek. Then the door burst open. Kaelan's head poked out. His expression looked like something had slammed into him hard. Surprise, fervent heat laced with a thread of panic. He cast a wary glance at Frost's window, then shot out a large hand and yanked that brother in women's clothes. Inside, the door slammed shut. Frost sat hunched on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around his knees, knuckles white. He felt his current location was far more treacherous than being mobbed by enemies. Inside the room, the candlelight burned a dim yellow, but the embrace Kaelan had anticipated did not happen. The moment he spread his arms, he saw Xylia's eyes. There was no blazing passion of reunion after long separation in those eyes, just a thin layer of light, cool and limpid like autumn water, reflecting the dancing candle flame with the ghost of a smile. Kaelan's arms froze midair, his muscles tensed. Slowly, they lowered again. Half a month ago, he'd held another girl and promised to wait 3 years for eldest brother Zhang of Zhao. That voice was still warm. Right now, he couldn't reach out those 2 hands with any kind of clean conscience. Xylia's smile traced over him. What's this? The mighty eldest brother Zhang of Zhao, whose spirit once covered the world, struck dumb at the sight of a woman, and even blushing a little. The vinegar in her tone almost curdled the air. Then, a lash of cold light, the candle flame shuddered, slashed apart by a whip of sword Kai, a short sword pressed flat against the side of Kaelan's neck. The blade was ice, a winter night draft clinging to bare skin. The pulse beneath his Adam's apple beat heavy, each thump slamming against that sharp edge. Instinct howled at him to jerk back. His shoulder blades snatched inward an inch. He nailed himself still. The candlelight slid along the sword's spine, carving out Xylia's face poised between a smile and something far from it. The tip lay steady at his throat, not a hair's quiver. This is your martial world vigilance, Xylia drawled. Her voice shed its coarse guise. It rang clear and cold, shattered ice, striking a porcelain bowl. You let a stranger in just like that, and you don't even dodge when a blade's at your throat who gave you the confidence that I wouldn't kill you. Kaelan's voice scraped out, roughened by the pressure on his throat. Who says you're a stranger? Oh, I'm not a stranger. The blade tipped up, forcing his chin higher. Then what is Cui Yana? Kaelan's lips moved, nothing came. His Adam's apple bobbed, dragging a faint, fine rasp against the sword's edge. He saw anger in Xylia's eyes, real anger. No killing intent on the blade, but that fury almost stabbed through the candlelight into his bones. It was my fault. His voice dropped low, rumbling hollow from his chest. I lost control. Xylia let out a soft scoff. The blade pressed down another fraction. When a woman pursues a man, there's only a layer of gauze between them. Besides, Cui Yana is adorable, and so rich. If it were me, I'd take her too. You can't blame eldest brother Zhang of Zhao for that. Kaelan didn't argue. He heard what sat beneath that tone, not mockery, but a conviction so settled, an apathy so deep it barely cared to hear any explanation. His voice ground out. So I'm the stranger now. You're here to clean house and purge the traitor. Yes, the strength behind Xylia's short sword fixed his head with perfect precision. I am now the holy maiden of a higher sect above the blood god cult. I am here to purge a traitor on behalf of a subordinate sect. For the sake of the bond we once shared, I'll make an exception and let you choose how you die. Go on, how do you want to die? The room held utterly still. The candle popped. A soft pitch of sound. Light washed both their faces in a warm amber wave. Outside the door, Frost's fingers tightened around his sword hilt. The pad of his thumb rasped over the wrapping cord with a dry rustle. Kaelan grinned. The angle of his chin muffled it, but the laugh still spilled from his throat. Harder than that way you bit me back in the water curtain cave. Bite me till I suffocate. Think that'll work. Xylia's voice went cold as winter stone. You're nothing but a sect traitor now. You actually think you can relive old dreams with this holy maiden. I'm sorry, but being a holy maiden demands severing all desire and emotion, devoting the heart wholly to the divine. I have already forgotten you. I came here precisely to completely sever this karma from a past life. It so happens you've already found a new love. I'll have no more hindrances. Lyle, my name is Xylia, Chichai. Xylia's expression clamped down, fury blazing through her eyes. The blood god cult is subordinate to the Four Symbols sect. Since when does a lofty holy maiden from the higher sect run out personally to help them purge a traitor? Are they worthy? Kaelan sighed. Are you here for the ancient sword? Do you need help? That one line, do you need help, nearly shattered every psychological barricade Xylia had thrown up. She clenched her teeth and ground out, I have countless subordinates under my command, every one of them at the 8th or 9th gate of the profound pass. The earthly chart and mortal chart take my orders. What act do you need to put on for me? Outsiders think you becoming holy maiden is a sparrow flying up a branch and turning into a phoenix. But I know your days, these past 6 months, haven't been easy. Kaelan's voice was low, a completely foreign environment. The sinister ways of a demon sect. No one by your side you could truly speak your heart to, Xylia shouted. I do have them. They take your orders because of the sect's structure. The moment you stumble, even just a minor thing like taking a man, it could lead to mass betrayal. And who knows if there are those jealous of your position, secretly gnashing their teeth to drag you down. You're walking on thin ice.
You might not even sleep as soundly as you did in the Barrow Mountains. Kaelan sighed again. I figured it out. You shouldn't have come to see me today at all. Xylia stared at him fixedly. She didn't say another word. He was right. Coming to see him was a longing she couldn't suppress, an impulse. She never should have come. Half a year apart, and he hadn't forgotten. He was still asking, do you need help? Just like back then, returning exhausted through the wind and snow to find a meal still warm at home. Xylia stared at him blankly, watched as he reached out and easily removed the sword from his neck, watched as he just as easily pulled her into an embrace. She had actually failed to evade it. The dignified 13th of the hidden dragon, fragile and useless to this degree. Not until she was wrapped in his arms did Xylia jolt awake. Her palm braced against his chest. If anyone finds out, we both die. Kaelan seized the hand holding the sword. He extended it outward, then flipped his hand behind his back, drew Dragon's Sparrow, and met the short sword, a sharp, metallic, ringing burst. Sparks flew. He stared at her and struck again. Ring, 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 ring. Blades tapped lightly against each other, bursting into fine trails of scattered light beneath the candle flame. Look, Kaelan rasped. The holy maiden is fighting a traitor. Xylia bit down hard on her lower lip. She almost burst out laughing. Chichai. In Kaelan's hands, the two blades still tapped together in a steady rhythm. The low, deep clinks were like the cadence of a heartbeat. He lowered his head to look at Xylia, the heat in his eyes threatening to burn the candle flame to nothing. No matter how you see me, no matter if you think Kaelan has wronged your heart and treated love as thin, since I left you, I have never again had that kind of intimacy. In my heart, my girlfriend has always been you. I've been waiting for the day I see you again, so I can kiss you without restraint. Xylia's mind went completely blank. She didn't know whether Kaelan had kissed Urindra or Cui Yana, but in her heart she felt what he said was the truth. Even now he blushed when a brothel madame solicited him. He was waiting for her. The blades rang. Ring, ring, ring. Kaelan's left arm locked around her waist and pulled her tight into his chest. Xylia hadn't yet recovered when her lips were already sealed. The force of his breath surged in fiercely, carrying half a year of suppressed agitation and scorching heat. The body in his arms stiffened, then softened. The desk creaked faintly as the two of them leaned against it, like a sigh peeling away in a secret chamber. The wet slide of lips and tongues wove through the rhythmic clinking of the blades, a decadent secret melody. His tongue was searing hot, scraping through every inch of her softness with invasive force. Her breath was torn into ragged fragments, an almost inaudible whimper escaping her nose, their scorching exhalations tangled together, impossible to tell whose was whose. Xylia thought dazedly. He really was pent up, but then wasn't she the same? How many midnights, stirred from dreams, had that man who touched her heartstrings, those fierce and domineering kisses, come crashing back through the darkness, never once forgotten? They were chivalrous heroines, proud noble daughters. They had stifled Kaelan. She was just a demoness from a demon sect, so what was wrong with a little stolen passion? Xylia closed her eyes, at last. She began to respond fervently, her arms wrapped around his neck, fingers curling into the hair at the back of his head. The kiss was almost a gnawing bite. The desk let out another pained creak. Their two blades hung suspended to the side, the light ringing never stopping, like war drums beating ceaselessly on the chambers of the heart, shattering every shred of her reason. Into powder, she had let him choose his own death anyway, suffocation that counted. All reason snapped the moment Xylia's eyes closed and she yielded. She was the only one he'd ever loved, not Urindra, not Cui Yana. Only with her did the starved thing in Kaelan's chest tear free and roar, demanding he pour out every fevered year of separation. Teeth clashed, lips bruised. His arm locked around her waist, crushing her against him like he'd fuse her into his bones and blood. The air itself seemed to sweat sparks. Their blades kept clashing, ting, ting, a steady metallic beat against ragged breaths. The door flew open with a crack. Frost burst in, broken sword in hand, already shouting, "Why do I hear blades? His voice cut off like a blade through tendon. The scene ahead made no kind of sense. Both of them had their backs to him, swords ringing high and low, fine sparks scattering in the dim candlelight, yet their faces were pressed tight together. A silver thread stretched between tangled lips, then snapped, silent, in the yellow glow. Frost stumbled backward into the doorframe. Yes. Xylia ricocheted outward the same instant. Her robes cracked like a sail in a gale. She cut a startled swan's arc through the shadow and straight out the window. The lattice burst, cold white moonlight flooding in, catching her robes billowing like a fleeing white bird. She landed on a moon, silvered rooftop, and spun around, cheeks still blazing, eyes still glossy with lingering moisture. But her voice came out razor, sharp and icy. What a traitor!
You had an accomplice hidden. I'll let your head stay put today. I'll claim it another time. Her voice faded into the hanging moonlight. More figures sliced through the night, voices clamoring. Holy maiden, are you hurt? Should we stand down? Xylia's voice drifted from the distance, still dripping with manufactured fury. This traitor's life is mine. No one interferes without my word. The crowd followed the sound, just glimpsing her vanishing afterimage. In the stark moonlight, the flush on her ears was unmistakable. But to them, it read as pure rage. So much for the rumors, she still held a torch. Inside the room, a single lamp guttered, the flame huddled deep in the bronze bowl, stretching gathered figures long and short. Xylia sat skewed in the main seat, fingertips drumming idle against the armrest. The voice that slipped from her crimson lips was lazy. Speak. An elder shuffled half a step forward. Holy maiden, half a month combing the ancestral records, we can now say with near certainty the ancient sword's manifestation ties to the start of summer solar term. Xylia inclined her head, a nail scratching a shallow groove in the wood grain, so we timed our arrival to match. More than that, the elder's voice dropped. It requires a ritual offering to make the sword acknowledge a master. The odd part is the closest attempt. The sword actually responded, but at the final moment it turned on the wielder. Killed them, then vanished, Xylia's fingers stilled. The elder drew a mottled hide parchment from his sleeve. I traced every predecessor who died under that sword's kai. Each one was a faithless wretch, betrayed promises, abandoned oaths. The flames seemed wrenched by an invisible hand. The room plunged into gloom. Xylia straightened. Genuine light sparked in her eyes. You're certain? The elder's face twitched. He didn't dare answer. Others exchanged glances. Someone coughed and forced a smile. Of course, our holy sect brothers are all loyal and righteous, keepers of promises, but who can guess what the ancient sword deems righteous? We can't just bet our own heads. Corner of Xylia's mouth curved before she pressed it flat. Her fingertip rapped the armrest twice. Well said. The elder continued. This subordinate believes we proceed with the ritual as planned. For the final wielder, we lure an outsider. If it works, seize the sword and leave. If it fails, we try again next year. The phrase "seize the sword and leave" echoed through the dim chamber. The elders nodded in succession, unabashed. And the candidate? Xylia's gaze swept over them. Frost, in Sword Lake City, right now. There's no second choice. The rhythm of her drumming fingers halted. She leaned forward, candlelight fracturing displeasure in her eyes. What about Kaelan? Traveling 1,000 lie to keep a promise doesn't that make him a man of honor. Elder Kaelan tilted his head, mouth pulling down. His face wore 5 characters plain as day. You know exactly why. Xylia's silver teeth bit into her lower lip. A long pause, then she forced a soft laugh through her teeth. Fine, Frost won't be easy. You all try first. Prepare other avenues, don't hang yourselves on one tree. Yes. She withdrew the smile and swept her sleeve, rising. Lately, experts from the Demon Suppression Bureau have been popping up with alarming frequency. In a mere Sword Lake City, even the mortal chart stirred. Where there's anomaly, there's a demon behind it. If the Imperial Court has its sights on the ancient sword, we withdraw this time. This is my first command. Do not let anything go wrong. This subordinate understands. 3 days later, morning light just crested the courtyard wall, dew still heavy on bamboo leaves. A gleam of blade split the mist. Kaelan, stripped to the waist, swung his saber, back muscles bunching like twisted bull tendon with each stroke. Sweat hurled off with the blade's momentum, glistening in dawn light like pearls snapped from a bowstring. Saber wind sliced through green-yellow leaves, sending them spinning into the mud. He didn't notice them. He only thought that diagonal slash could press half an inch lower. At the far end, Frost practiced his sword. He drew it with aching slowness, not slow, but honed by 1,000 repetitions. The blade slid from the scabbard mouth, metal friction fine and dense, a dragon's chant stirring from soft to sharp. A clear cry sliced the morning breeze. Then the tip froze before him, steady as an ice needle nailed into the air. Each trained alone, in 3 days they'd exchanged hardly a word, yet every morning, pushing open the door to the courtyard, there was the other's silhouette. A wordless accord. Kaelan sheathed his saber, just as Frost slid his sword home. Their gazes met across a yard of shredded leaves. The corner of Frost's mouth lifted. Kaelan, still drenched, cracked a grin. Is your wound healed? Let's go take a look around today. They say Sword Lake City has its novelties. Stuck in this courtyard every day, we came for nothing. Frost rubbed his sword hilt, words still clipped short. You go. That random blade you bought before. You're not planning to face me with a blacksmith scrap, are you?
Kaelan grabbed him without waiting and pulled him toward the door. "Come on, let's get you a proper sword. I see you're not broke."
Frost's face stayed blank. "Not much. Business has been dry a long while." "I have some." Kaelan patted his chest. "The Cui family gave me travel money for saving Weiyang. The weight annoyed me, so I just took the silver notes." Frost glanced back at the courtyard horses, then at the dragon sparrow on Kaelan's back, and finally his gaze settled on Kaelan's chest. A tiny twitch moved at the corner of his mouth. He didn't argue. They hit the main street. Sword Lake City was a lawless sprawl, weapon shops, elbowing each other for space. After browsing a few, Frost's frown cut deeper. Ordinary longswords wouldn't survive one clash with Dragon Sparrow. He needed something that could parry at least a few blows. But all he saw was common iron. Kaelan questioned a shopkeeper. Nothing better. The man eyed the thick, backed broad, bladed saber on Kaelan's back. "If you two are after a sword that can contend with that blade, you'd be better off finding a heavy Chuan iron sword. What use are these slender things?" Frost shook his head. "I don't use heavy swords," the shopkeeper muttered. "Buying a sword just to let someone else hack at? What kind of fool's errand is that? What do you know?" Kaelan didn't bother arguing. He turned to Frost. "Let's split up. The city's big enough. I refuse to believe there isn't a weapon here that can stand against Dragon Sparrow." Frost nodded. They parted, one left, one right. Kaelan rounded the corner and nearly walked straight into a familiar face. Weiyang of the Demon Suppression Bureau stood waiting, a thin smile playing on his lips. "Young Master Zhao, out hunting for a fine blade." Kaelan stopped short. He sighed. "Don't tell me you had someone camped outside my inn for 3 days." Wu did not oversee the watch personally. Weiyang's smile didn't slip, but hearing you two had gone out, I came specially for a meeting. If the young master has need, the Demon Suppression Bureau's armory still holds a few treasured pieces. Spare me." Kaelan cut him off. "Official goods burn the hand that holds them." Then, why did young Master Zhao once declare openly that the head of Duskbloom should come see him in person? Kaelan let out a dry laugh. "Because there's no way she could possibly come. I just said it offhand." His voice stopped dead. Weiyang watched him with that steady smile. "She came. Does she have nothing better to do? Do you have any idea how far it is from the Latapak Lerpmijings to here?" Wu is also puzzled. "But the head of Duskbloom is indeed already waiting within the city. The young master invited her personally. Surely it is only proper to go see her now." "Yes." Kaelan was silent a beat. At last he nodded. "Lead the way." He followed Weiyang in silence, thoroughly disgusted with himself. He always steered clear of imperial matters, and yet Duskbloom had traveled 1,000 li without a second thought. With sincerity like that, to duck her now would be deliberate posturing. So lost in his own head, he barely noticed when Wu stopped. "We've arrived." Kaelan looked up. His pupils contracted. This was unmistakably the very brothel where he'd blurted out his stupid question about whether they excelled more in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting than the head of Duskbloom. All the reckless words he'd ever uttered flooded back in a torrent. The man Duskbloom cannot obtain. Next time this old master casts a covetous eye, it might just be on Duskbloom. Tell her to wash up clean and wait. And now he'd added comparing her to brothel women. Kaelan drew a deep breath, his spine stiffening. At least Wu led him around to the back gate. The rear courtyard was another world entirely, a bamboo grove, tranquil and secluded. A bamboo tower tucked among it, quiet, removed, untouched by worldly dust. Insects buzzed, birds warbled, and a thread of zither music flowed from the tower. Ethereal and distant, so pure the air itself felt clarified. Brawny men in martial attire lay hidden among the bamboo, their stares sharp as blades. As Kaelan stepped in, they turned in unison. He ignored them completely and climbed the stairs. His footsteps struck the bamboo, tap, tap, tap. Each beat seemed to slow his heartbeat, gradually, until everything stilled. The moment he stepped onto the final stair, the zither music ceased. The lingering vibration of the tail string hung in the tower, refusing to fade, like a drop of water falling into a dark pool, ripples spreading wide. Even the fine dust drifting through the window in evening light seemed to tremble with it. Kaelan halted outside the door. Shreds of light leaking through the bamboo curtain fell across his face, bright then dark, carving a measure of calm into his chiseled features. His heartbeat slowed half a beat for no reason. Even his breathing grew lighter. Inside, Duskbloom sat alone before the zither. She wore plain robes and a long skirt, her hair cascading down her back. Unlike their first meeting, when she'd been wrapped in heavy sable furs, her pallid face now bore the weariness of recent illness. A faint crease rested between her brows, as if a weight of unresolved thoughts lay there, yet it only made her more like a winter plum in snow, solitary, clear, bitterly cold.
Her slender hand lifted from the strings. She turned her head to look at him and smiled faintly. "Please, come in." That smile, ice cracking at Spring's return, a plum branch trembling, the cold stillness of the whole room, suddenly gave birth to warmth. Kaelan's gaze stilled. Even his iron will rippled quietly. He stepped across the threshold. Duskbloom had already settled beside the tea table. Her pale hand lifted the pot, and boiling water poured into celadon cups. White steam billowed upward. Her fingers nearly merged with the porcelain's hue, translucent with a faint pink at the tips, shimmering in and out of the mist. The fragrance of tea spread, intertwining with the medicinal scent clinging to her, building a roomful of quiet stillness. Kaelan sat upright across from her, proper and composed. All the sharp words he'd stored in his chest crumbled to dust. He'd clearly come looking for a confrontation, but with bamboo shadows swaying and tea smoke curling, his restless mind was smoothed by an unseen hand. The surging waves of his world settled completely, leaving only a river flowing eastward, quietly bathed in the slanting sun. Duskbloom was also looking at him. The youth bore a heavy saber, sitting like a crouched tiger. The rawness of youth had faded, the unruliness hidden now within his brows. She nudged the teacup before him and spoke softly. "Why does young Master Zhao not speak? Can it be that you still resent Wan Zhuang for issuing that warrant back then?" Kaelan let out a short scoff. "A person like you, an atmosphere like this, it naturally makes a man afraid to raise his voice." Duskbloom smiled. A true scoundrel of the martial world would only say, "This dame's easy on the eyes." "Wash up clean and wait?" What atmosphere would leave them too timid to speak loudly? Having his past loose talk so precisely skewered, Kaelan's throat tightened. He said bluntly, "There is a line of poetry. But if I say it, the difference between it and wash up clean and wait might not be so great." Duskbloom instead grew a trace of curiosity. "I'd like to hear it anyway. If I say, 'Dare not raise my voice too loud, lest I startle the heavenly ones above,' would you think I'm fawning on you?" Kaelan's directness came with a touch of frustration, yet that was exactly how I felt just now. For a person to be beautiful to this degree is truly cheating. I originally held some resentment toward you, and I can't even summon it. Instead, my nerve has weakened. Damned infuriating. Duskbloom paid no mind to the rough words that followed. She murmured that line of poetry softly to herself. A strange light flickered through her eyes. "Is this line not already present in the classical texts? What surprises you?" Kaelan asked, puzzled. Duskbloom smiled and did not answer. "The texts were vast as the sea." To pluck this line out at hand was already a mark of one's foundation. To find it perfectly suited to the mood of the moment was even rarer. This so-called scholar bearing of his could not be hidden after just a single line. No amount of crude martial world roughness could mask the cultivation soaked into his bones. If he had only frantically started studying after reaching adulthood, to cultivate this kind of charm within half a year would be far harder than breaking through to the 60. H rank of the hidden dragon in half a year. Her gaze rippled. A single thought remained. Was he truly born in some rural Zhao village? Kaelan stepped out of the bamboo lodge into the settling dusk. Fading sunlight, sifted through the bamboo tips, lay shattered across the ground. The wind rustled through the leaves with a soft murmur, like pages turning far away. Weiyang leaned against a pillar under the veranda, arms folded. Seeing him emerge, a faint, near-imperceptible smile tugged at his lips. As expected, the first seat's judgment was not wrong. Kaelan didn't break stride, only waving a hand. "The debt I owed her is settled now." He strode through the bamboo grove. The hidden experts of the Demon Suppression Bureau parted way for him, surprise flickering in their eyes. This man, who had walked in radiating murderous intent, now emerged as a deep, still pool. The inn's private courtyard was quiet. Frost already sat on the stone steps, the blacksmith's sword beside him, fresh nicks scarring the blade's edge. He'd been cleaving something damn hard. As Kaelan shoved the gate open, Frost's eyes lifted a fraction. "No sword." Kaelan yanked the dragon's barrow off his shoulder, dropped it heavy onto the stone table. "Didn't. Weiyang from the Demon Suppression Bureau cornered me on the road. Told me Duskbloom's here. So I went to see her." Frost's eyebrows twitched, more reaction than he'd shown all night. Duskbloom's first seat. She actually came. "Oh, she came." Kaelan twisted the cap off his gourd, took a burning swallow. Liquor scraped down his throat. He squinted. "A sickly weakling, traveling 1,000, lie, just to size up a rebel like me. The court's sincerity, I'm drowning in it." Frost let a beat of silence pass. Then, what did she want? Kaelan wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Not much. Felt me out. Asked if I really did grow up in that dirt. Poor Zhao village." A sharp, scoffing laugh escaped him. "Hell, by the end, I almost believed I was some scholar."
Frost didn't laugh. His eyes stayed on the nicked blade. Voice low, he said, if the court truly means to use you, it might not be the worst thing. They could ease your path here at Sword Lake. I don't need their help. The gourd slammed against stone. Your sword, we're fixing that tomorrow. A city this size, there's got to be a blade worthy of you. And if not, I'll beat one out with the dragons. Barrow. A twitch flickered at the corner of Frost's mouth, fighting a smile. He shook his head, stood, and scooped up his longsword. Tomorrow morning, Lakeside Bamboo Grove. I'll wait. He pushed open his door, was through, and just as the door was closing, tossed back, rest up, I heard movement outside the city tonight. Didn't sound like Demon Suppression Bureau. Left alone, Kaelan tipped his head back to the sky. The moon sharpened, brighter, and starlight spilled through the cloud gaps, washing the bluestone courtyard clean. His hand found the dragon's. Barrow's hilt, grip tightening until the cord wrap pressed deep grooves into his knuckles. Nights at ancient Sword Lake, they were never for sleeping.